Let's get back to the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.
Here comes the clown.
All right, coverage on the Big Ten Network just about to take over. Somehow this game last year between Ohio State and Indiana that they're doing like a scenic journey of. I guess it's the BTN, the journey, whatever.
The journey.
Somehow going over 1 o'clock. For some reason, you would think that they would square that off at the top of the hour. But that's, I guess, a little bit of inside baseball. So they're just transitioning over the coverage to the Mandalay Bay at this moment. So we'll hear from Tony Petitti in just 1 second. Someone just brought up last year Deshaun Foster's media day. I wouldn't call it a gaffe, but it was funny.
It was a great welcome to the Big Ten moment.
His opening statement was, "Hi, everyone. I'm Deshaun Foster. I'm the coach of the UCLA Bruins. We are in LA. It's us and USC." What a great... And then he just kind of paused for a really long time and then said, "Does anybody have any questions?"
Good statement.
Which I thought was fantastic. So Big Ten Media Days has a new setting this year, the Mandalay Bay Resort in Las Vegas. A little bit different than a random hotel ballroom in Chicago. The field at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, the McCormick Place in the South Loop of Chicago. And I guess that's it. It's either been at a hotel in Chicago, a convention center in Chicago, the field in Indianapolis, and now we change some things up. We go to a hotel in Las Vegas. Why do you think they do? Why? To make it a little bit easier on the 4 people on the West Coast media who show up at this thing?
Oh, it's because they do conventions and gatherings well, right? Like
because the Mandalay Bay does?
Vegas
does?
It's a destination.
Is it easier than Indianapolis? I thought Indianapolis was like the...
But we've been to St. Elmo's. We haven't been to Vegas.
If you're moving it down to place, I've always thought, if you're using your logic, Indianapolis has always been like the gold standard for we do conventions, and we are also the home of the Big Ten, and we are also the home of the NCAA, and it's all right here, and the conference's media has easy access to it. Now, Vegas, to be fair, easy access to get there. It's a cheap flight for just about everybody in the conference. But we head out to, let's see, they're having the Big Ten's Vice President of People and Culture up right now before we turn it over to Tony Petitti. Here is the conference's commissioner on his on the State of the Union.
Discover Big Ten Football Media Days. Next week, our teams open training camp. In just 37 days from today, Rutgers, Minnesota, Nebraska, and Wisconsin will kick off their seasons and the first full weekend of a 2026 college football season. Among the 18 head coaches you'll hear from over the next 3 days, I want to especially welcome new Purdue coach Barry Odom to the conference. Thank you to our host, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. This is the Big Ten Conference's debut in the city that will host our 2027 women's and 2028 men's basketball tournaments. This year, we're excited to announce new and expanded partnerships and platforms to strengthen our conference and deepen the impact of our corporate partners. These relationships reflect our shared commitment to innovation, fan engagement, and delivering value to our student athletes and schools. This fall will be the second year of the We Give Blood Drive in partnership with Abbott, attacking the worst blood shortage in a generation. Last year, more than 20,000 Big Ten fans donated blood and saved more than 60,000 lives. And the University of Nebraska won a $1 million prize to support student health initiatives. This year, we'll be kicking off the competition on August 27, with the winner announced December 6th at the 2025 Discover Big Ten Football Championship game in Indianapolis, airing on Fox. Last month, we announced a new collaboration with PayPal and Venmo that allowed our schools
Dear
to securely
God.
and efficiently distribute payments to student athletes on July 1st. This year, Venmo will present a new Big Ten rivalry series that will highlight some of the most storied matchups in college sports across football and men's and women's basketball.
Wait a minute. They get paid via Venmo?
The 2024-25 season was a remarkable one for the Big Ten, for our student athletes, our coaches, administrators, and fans. During their historic first Big Ten season, USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon combined for 19 conference titles, including Oregon's 2024 Big Ten football championship. Big Ten members won 13 national championships in football, field hockey, women's volleyball, men's water polo, men's gymnastics, women's ice hockey, men's and women's indoor track and field, men's and women's wrestling, women's golf, men's outdoor track and field, and rowing. Additionally, we had 9 national runners-up, including in men's and women's lacrosse and women's gymnastics, and national semifinalists in men's soccer, women's basketball, and men's ice hockey. We also reached the Baseball and Softball World Series in the same season for the first time since 2019. It was an equally impactful year off the field for our members with the approval of the House settlement and the implementation of a new model for collegiate athletics. We continue to work with our colleagues in the A4 and throughout college athletics to ensure that the new model provides the intended benefits for student athletes while providing a sustainable, transparent, and fair system of competition. Our administrators and coaches have made it very clear we are committed to the new model. Now let's focus on football. The Big Ten played in 8 of the 11 college football playoff games last season, and we had both teams in the Rose Bowl quarterfinal game. On the way to their 9th national championship, Ohio State defeated the 9th, 7th, 5th, and top-seeded teams in the 12-team bracket, giving the Big Ten back-to-back titles. Last year, the 4 most viewed college football games of the season featured Big Ten teams, as did 7 of the top 10 and 12 of the top 20. Each of our 3 broadcast television partners, CBS, Fox, and NBC, had at least one Big Ten matchup with more than 9.5 million viewers. 21 of our games had more than 5 million viewers, and 40 had at least 3 million viewers. As for the 25 season, this week you will hear from our coaches and an outstanding group of players. It's clear Big Ten football has never been deeper or stronger. I know there's been a great deal of talk about the future CFP format, and I'm sure you'll have questions for me. First, I'd like to talk about the process. In the spring of 2024, the member conferences came together to negotiate a media deal with ESPN. Prior to concluding that deal, an agreement was reached that set forth revenue sharing from the college football playoff to the conferences and Notre Dame. At the time, there was a lot of discussion about future formats and the number of teams in the playoff. A specific decision on format was not reached. Instead, it was agreed that the Big Ten and SEC would control changes to the CFP format and the selection committee process after considering feedback from the membership. Like the revenue share parameters, the Big Ten and SEC's format control is set forth clearly in the agreement that all members signed. With respect to format, the Big Ten has been consistent in its strong preference for a playoff system that allocates spots based on conference standings and the results of play-in games. We want to better connect the regular season and the postseason. A critical goal of any postseason format, regardless of sport, is to keep as many teams alive as deep into the season as possible. We want more conference games to matter in November. Also, the playoff format should not function as a disincentive to schedule tough non-conference games. As we said throughout this process, we are open to considering any format ideas that come from our colleagues or the CFP staff. But to be clear, formats that increase the discretion and role of the CFP selection committee will have a difficult time gaining support from the Big Ten. I want to leave more time for questions, so thank you all for being here, especially our 18 head coaches and 54 student athletes representing their schools. And as I said, I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Let's go. Let's question.
At this time, we'll open the floor for questions for Commissioner Petitti.
Hi,
On your right, Tony.
There we go. Thank you.
I'm Ross Dellinger.
Hi, Commissioner. I'm so far back you can't even
Yeah,
see
I could
me.
barely see it past the pole there.
I'll let somebody else ask a playoff question, but I was just wondering your take on I think it was last week's issues between the CSC, the guidance they gave about collectives. When's that going to get resolved, and how urgent is it that issue gets resolved?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think it's worth sort of talking about the relationship and the ongoing relationship that plaintiffs' attorneys have in this process. The CSC is brand new. It's in the process of making rules. We've had an incredible group working on an implementation committee to provide guidance and help with rulemaking. Some of that has to be in a process that goes past the plaintiffs' lawyers. That's what happened in this case. I don't think it's unpredictable, but there'll be some moments like this where, whether it's guidance or interpretation of rules, there's some discrepancy. But I think, what's happened over the last few days, based on talking to our general counsel and others, that, they're working together to try to get to the right resolution on this and then to move forward. I don't think it'll be the last time that there's some issue that comes up in the process. Again, I think people have to be patient when it comes to the CSC. The settlement, frankly, came later than we expected in terms of its approval. We're grateful that Judge Wilkin chose to approve it, but it did, compress the time period. So there's a lot to catch up on, and there's a lot for, coaches and administrators to deal with. But, I don't think it's unusual when you have something this just different that, there's going to be some bumps in the road to get to the right place. But I think everybody's committed to get there.
On your left, Tony.
Doug Maurice from Kings of the North. Is it a must in your mind that the power conferences play the same number of conference games? And if the SEC won't go to 9, would the Big Ten ever consider going back to 8?
Yeah. So first, it's not a must. Each league will decide what they think the best conference schedule is for them. I think in a system where you have allocated spots, I think in talking to our athletics directors and coaches, I don't think we really care how many conference games any league is playing, because you're qualified off your conference standings. That's sort of up to you to run your own league and decide how you want to do it. But when you get to a system that's increasing the at-larges and increasing the work of a selection committee, that's when you need to understand how we're competing in the regular season. Look, at the end of the day, it's really simple math. With 18 schools and 9 we're losing 9 more games to start. And so at the end of the day, I think it's really relevant. So will we consider, more at-larges? Right now, I think the first thing is to really understand what everybody's doing in their conference schedule. But there's a second really critical part, which I mentioned in my remarks, which is what are we doing to get the selection process right? So I think those two things go hand in hand. First is how many conference games are we playing? And then secondly, what's the selection process going to be? People have talked about improving the committee's work. I believe the committee does a great job with what they have, and I've yet to hear any member tell me that more data will make the job easier. They have a lot of things in front of them. We went through a mock selection, we saw it. And so I just think those two things have to go hand in hand. First is the conference games, but again, if you go back to an allocated system, then I don't think we really care about how many conference games anybody plays.
First row here, Tony, on your right side.
There we go.
Good morning, Commissioner. AP Stidham, AP as we see it. Commissioner, have you given any guidance to your membership about the allocation of the revenue share with regards to Title IX? Most people, when you read the stories, they discuss more to the football and the men's basketball. But have you had those discussions with your membership and any guidance along those lines?
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion. As you can imagine, the system was new. We've been working to sort of implement it for for basically more than a year at this point, since we made the agreement in principle to approve the settlement back, I guess it was last May of 24. I think consistently throughout everywhere, people are taking a market-based approach to how they allocate rev share. One thing about the way this system is built, there's no obligation to get to any number. What sports you choose to support, how you allocate the money among your student athletes, that's really a decision that's made institutionally. So in the Big Ten, what we focused on is letting our members make the decisions they think are right for their programs and right for their student athletes, and then continue to provide the benefits that we've been doing and the support for all of the teams. So really, it's an individual school decision about that. But I would tell you consistently, you're seeing more of a revenue market-based approach in terms of how the revenue share is allocated among members.
On your far right.
Stuart Mandel from The Athletic. Tony, when talking about CFP format, obviously you have a lot of constituents, coaches, ADs, and so on. The public, the fans, have indicated overwhelmingly they do not want a system where certain conferences get more bids than others. At what point, how much emphasis, if at all, do what the public want come into decisions like this?
Well, first, I'll take issue with the way you're phrasing that. I don't really know. I'm not aware of massive studies with real research that have demonstrated that.
It's not a scientific poll, but a poll I put on Twitter this morning, it was 76% for 5+11, 24% for the plan you guys want.
Look, I think, we feel pretty strongly that fans will really gravitate to a play-in weekend. That, providing games that are do or die on the field will drive fan interest. Whether there's enough information that fans have in any one poll about what a new system will be, I'm not aware of how it was phrased or not. I just believe, and I'm talking to our league, the weekend that we're talking about, where you'd have championship games and across all conferences, meaningful play-in games. I don't see how that's a bad thing for college football, and I think fans will gravitate to it.
In the middle, Tony.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioner. Bob Akayeri with Reddit's College Football. You've talked about your concerns over subjectivity in an expanded playoff format like a 5+11. Do you feel there was issues with subjectivity in the committee this past season that leads you to that conclusion?
I think it's been a really hard thing to do for a long time. I mean, you going back to the BCS and deciding who the two teams are, and then going back through the 14 playoff. It hasn't been easy. And I think I'm not going to comment on the last couple of seasons, but I think there are a lot of places who think it's also teams not getting consideration. I just think there's a lot of that. So the idea that I'm not going to point to any one school, whether it's in our league or outside our league, you can go back and look at the reaction when the rankings come out and who's invited and see all that yourself. But at the end of the day, I think there's been a lot of concern about how those decisions are made. I focus on that piece. How are we differentiating from teams that don't have head-to-head play, teams that don't play common schedules across leagues that do different things? And I think that's a really hard, tall order. And the point I will make is that every time you think about expansion, I think there's some sort of counter idea that it gets easier to make these decisions. It actually gets harder. More teams look alike. More teams are going to have 9-3 records. More teams are going to struggle in a conference road game. More teams might stumble in a conference home game. And some teams play tougher non-conference schedules. At least, and there's also just the evolution of how you go through the season and how you move across. So I just think that those decisions are really difficult to make. And I know this has been the system that we've used for a really long time, but I have a hard time believing expanding it that will make these decisions easier. Thank you.
On your far left.
Adam King, 10 TV. There's a report out that you wrote a letter to the NCAA about the Michigan sign stealing scandal. Curious whether the letter happened or not. Do you believe that that should be put to bed, that the punishment that you issued is strong enough and that the investigation should be closed?
Yeah, well, the first part, I'm going to confirm that we did submit a letter. It's not uncommon in proceedings for a conference office to weigh in on. So I'm not going to address what the contents of the letter we sent are. And because it's an ongoing process, I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment about whether it's enough or not while there are individuals deliberating. I don't think that's the right thing to do in the process. Look, I will say, having gone through this, one thing to point out is I think when you think about the CSC and the discipline and what we're trying to build with the new entity, having an enforcement mechanism that just is faster is a priority, one that reacts more quickly. This is a system we have now. It's been in place for a long time. It functions the way it was built. But I do think there's this consensus among our colleagues that whatever we're building for the enforcement piece that's going to live inside the CSC, that it's got to be there. It's just difficult to be still talking about this, almost on 2 seasons after. So I think everybody agrees that that part of the process should change. Thank you.
Just a reminder to please state your name and affiliation clearly into the microphone. Tony, standing in the back on your right.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
In the back, Commissioner. Todd Sadowski, Fox 43 Sports and Nittany Game Week. I wanted to ask you about our location here for the next couple of days in Las Vegas. There's no Big Ten programs here. What went into the reasoning to have them host the Big Ten Media Days? They obviously have the College National Championship coming up. What do you see as the future of this city and the involvement potentially in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, to be really candid, this was a logistics thing. There were some things going on in Indianapolis. We've tried to and have brought our media days to Indy, and it's worked really well for us. There just wasn't possible this year, and then we had to make some decisions about where to go. We're bringing our men's and women's basketball tournaments here in the next couple of years, so it made sense. And the city's been great in terms of providing us the resources we need to do this. I think obviously, we are a conference that goes coast to coast, so having some presence closer to our West Coast members is not a bad thing. So it was really just started with logistics, to be really candid.
First row, right in front of you. Yeah. Commissioner Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts and 24/7 Sports in Columbus. Question I have is about the play-in situation that you want to institute for the playoff. Last year it was pretty cut and dried that you had 4 top 10 teams that should be in the playoff. I guess the trade-off is those teams worked so hard to establish themselves after 12 or 13 games as top 10 teams. Why should they have to play Illinois or Iowa, just as examples, who had more league losses? I don't sense a clamor for a 4-loss team in a playoff. And doesn't that create a situation for the playoff, which we saw blowouts in the playoff last year, for more blowouts in the playoff, which drive down the ratings and make it less lucrative, perhaps, to put a team that doesn't deserve to be in the playoff?
Yeah, there's a lot there. So let me try to do it in order. So the first piece about the value of the playing games. First, I have to commend our coaches because they obviously talk about the same thing you just raised. Like, hey, if I'm in position, I can get hurt by losing a game. I think where our coaches came down and our ADs was that, at the end of the day, there are 18 members in the Big Ten. You have 17 available opponents. You play 9 of them, right? So there's a lot of discrepancy, let alone making comparisons, across the leagues. There's a lot of issues about how you compare teams inside the Big Ten. Your schedule, just by the way it plays out, might be easier than people thought when it was made up. We obviously try to competitively balance our schedules. So there's an issue there, like even within our own league, giving teams a chance. Where we came down is that we were willing to take that risk. If you had 16 teams, there's still a catch-all where there's potentially 3 at-larges. So in your example, if a 6 seed beat a 3, could the 3 then go into a pool to get in? Maybe. But at the end of the day, I think our coaches are willing to take that risk because what they're thinking about it is not a snapshot of any one season. They're looking at how do we get more teams in contention. Look, as you expand the playoff, the rest of the bowl system and how we're trying to protect all of that, you're basically driving everybody to this one event. And it's just, I think in every league's interest, not just ours, to have more teams emerging, like Indiana did last year, giving more teams a chance to compete. And there's just huge value in having games across. Look, last year, Ohio State was 7-2 and finished 4th in the Big Ten, right? It was undefeated in non-conference play. So, the idea that we can go deep, I feel pretty strongly about that. If you're 6-3 in the Big Ten, I would argue that's a great record. And if you stumbled in a non-conference game, I don't know why that disqualifies you. 8-4 is a winning percentage. If you project that winning percentage in every other sport, I'm pretty sure you make the postseason. Whether it's like that type of winning record. So we've conditioned ourselves to think that if you're not a 1 or 2 loss team, you're not worthy of competing. There are plenty of teams in professional sports who qualify for the playoffs who can't get past the first round game. That's okay. They still get to play. We'll figure it out on the field rather than sitting in a room.
All right. There's Tony Petitti at Big Ten Media Days. He's got a few more questions left to answer, but I wanted to take a second and unpack some of the things. So we'll end that here a little bit short on this show, but he'll continue on for a few more minutes from Vegas. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back. There's a few things left to unpack from his comments on what the Big Ten wants and why they want what they want. Do they actually want what they want is something that I've questioned kind of this entire time. Also, Twitter polls. Incredibly scientific and cool.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Thank you, Stuart Mandel. Back after this on 1620 The Zone.